to order with the roll call for the Thursday, June 2nd meeting of the Economic Development Commission. Bill Gross, Commissioner.
George Mappin, Commissioner.
Robert Morris, Commissioner. Michael Whitehouse, Commissioner.
Tom Benelli, Commissioner.
Okay, we do have a quorum. So with that, I'm going to go to public communications. Tom, you're the one who doesn't have one. We did get a letter from the Groton Conservation Advocates, and we also have a representative here, and I believe you'd like to address us.
Sorry.
You can, since it's a small gathering, you can do whatever you want. I think you just have to be able to hear. The record is fine. Perfect.
I have a bad
No problem.
So the commission, chairman of Groton Conservation Advocates, we're a 5-year-old organization committed to the health and well-being of the environment of Groton. So I want to just share some thoughts with you about development in Groton on behalf of our organization. And first of all, I wanted to commend the staff and you for the terrific job you all have done related to getting the schools, the closed schools, market, finding developers for them and moving forward with that progress, with that process. And from your March report, the staff report, I presume that's going to bring rainfall of new taxes this year, next year, soon. And to Groton, I had up to something like $1.5 million, which is terrific. So in contrast, I want to speak a little bit about the two projects that have turned this town topsy-turvy and created considerable public upset, which are of course the old school project and the two data centers. And I wanted you to consider the projects of that size really aren't appropriate for Groton. And if you want to bring them to Groton, you need to invest probably significant financials into studying their impacts before you bring them to Groton. The result has been, as you know, considerable public opposition to those projects. And I would say that we're concerned that the staff doesn't have the capacity to adequately vet those projects and to line up the studies that need to be done before those projects are brought forward. Considering the planters, well, the data centers, we talked to the town manager, the planner in Wallingford, which have been going through a similar process with data centers. And what Wallingford did was very early on, they hired a sound engineer, noise engineer, who did a study of the impacts and they shared that with the public. That's kind of what has to come first. We have to know what the impacts of these projects are. In my view, in our view, there's a lot of people before we bring them forward. So just to sum up, I think that these projects have eaten up a huge amount of time of the town council, staff, your commission, and eventually, and ultimately, they're probably all going away. So the question is, how can we do that? How can we bring forward development that fits with the scale of Groton, that really works here, that people aren't going to oppose because it feels too huge, too overwhelming. So that's just a summary of what I wrote in my longer statements. So I didn't take your name in vain, Michael, but you said that. Okay, any questions, comments, or thoughts? No.
Normally, public communication, we don't comment, we receive in the information. And we always,
Well, we need to have more dialogue.
we do have dialogue for specific issues that come up, and this is just more, we want to make sure that it is recorded. And there's nothing specific here. The only 2 points I have made repeatedly over a period of time is both the projects that were listed here never came to the Economic Development Commission from the town council for our input or such. We got it after the fact. But we've always been put as a commission, like we're the ones endorsing something that we haven't even had beforehand. So, I think that the greatest aspect of what the EDC is in here of converting our existing commercial into a more, when I first got on many years ago, and Paige was the one that is the sense of place that we seem to have in Mystic, that we do not seem to have in our commercial area. But that takes investment, people that are willing to put money into the community, and what our job is to try to make Groton a place where people want to invest their money in improving the properties we have at this point in time. So that's my 2 cents on what I read here. I always appreciate input. So anyone else? Tom, did you have anything to say? Because I never want to exclude you out there on the Zoom land.
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. George, do you want something?
Oh, ma'am.
Yeah.
We understand the complexity that is ahead, and also understand the concern of our neighbors. So the challenge that we have as a commission is trying to identify, as what you said, not the project that big, and what would be that nebulous number of what that thing is. It's different from each of us here. It's different from all of you out in the public. And the aspirations for different people in the public could be higher, could be lower than ours. But what we have to do now is, Groton is at a precipice of immense growth. And there's going to be a lot of interest coming into New London County. And we need to either accommodate in some fashion some of those projects, or identify what works for us. Because at the end of the day, our objective is, how can we lower taxes? How can we make this a livable place? How can we make our neighborhoods pleasant? How can we pay for them? How can we create jobs for the next generation and have them work here? So these are some of the just minutiae of thoughts that goes into our mind. None of us have the perfect answer. And it is almost like in the olden days when people were driving around in horse and buggy, and we were complaining about the roads that were being built. And we now have come to a point, we are coming into the 22nd century. And we have vast changes in technology and operational needs that needs to be implemented across the country and in Connecticut. To some points of the technology and the data center and such, I would ask you to look at it at the point when people used to complain before AT&T started putting up lampposts. They're now blocking my view. I had a beautiful view. There are all these cables running around. It's not tidy. So we have to weigh where we are going to be 10 years from now. whether we will make the money or our people will leave and go to another town. And that will be a big knock on our revenue. And we afford to negate EV or Pfizer or offshore wind as they are looking to put firmer stakes in the ground, hire our next generation, our students, pay for our schools. These are things that we have to balance things out. I just need to say that. I'm not saying we are not embracing this, but it is things like this that I'm glad you're bringing to attention, that we also need to look at. Thank you. Robert?
Thank you for the letter. I just want to assure you, my perspective is that we're really of the same mind on this. You know, our natural resources are what attracts people here for the investment. So anything we do, you know, I would recommend or approve would be in scale, and it wouldn't be diminishing that, because once it's gone, it's, you know, it's we can't use it to bring in the right kind of things that increase the tax base and make it a livable community. So I just want to assure you, sometimes I think people will have a perspective. There's a you know, either or relationship, but I assure you, I think we're all on the same page with what we would put forth and what we would be behind if we're presented with input for the council or anybody on this. Would be things that conform and you would probably be happy with. Win-win.
Thank you. Michael.
And yeah, a couple thoughts I have. One is, so my background is, my degree is in economics. And so one of the concepts we have is opportunity costs. You know, nothing is free, and it's not like with the data center, it's not like there would be open space or a data center. It's going to be a data center, or they're going to build something else. And one of the alternative plans I've seen is an industrial park, which is a lot more a lot less trees and a lot more pavement in an industrial park than a data center. And in terms of the scale of the project, I think some people, I believe the old school is like 800, 900 units. So my numbers may be a little bit off, but that's roughly how many units are Meridian Street Extension over on the city side with Country Glen and the condo complex next to it. And I've never seen 3 cars at a time on Meridian Street Extension, because it's 1,000 cars across the course of the day. It's not like the green light drops and everyone goes driving out of their house at the same time. And residential doesn't create a whole lot of traffic. So I think there's some degree of scale, but think about conservation. Where I live, my next door, or my backyard of butter is the strip mall with Aldi and Planet Fitness and all them. And because we have good zoning policies for the, I don't know what the technical term is, the trees they had to leave when they built the thing. Huh? Buffer area, yes. I love sitting on my back deck, and yeah, my back part of the abutting property is a strip mall. So you'd say your deck faces a strip mall. That sounds like a wonderful way to spend your morning, but there's 100 feet of trees between them, and half of them are mine, and half of them are required by zoning, and so that's a permanent green space that exists there. So I think with effective policies, then we can preserve the green nature, the natural resources, while also having the development. And I think we need to always watch out for what is the alternative. So that's what I worry about with the data center. If that doesn't happen, what does happen? That's not town property. That's private property, and there's all kinds of things they can do without any approvals right now. I mean, they can pave that over into a parking lot tomorrow if they want to. I'm pretty sure they're zoned to do that. I don't think they're going to, but it's, you know, it's, we always need to look at what are the alternatives. And my other concern, we're talking about building housing, is I'm fortunate enough that I've been able to buy a house, which means my mortgage is going to be the same mortgage for the next 28 years. So my rent's not going up. I don't have rent anymore. But if we don't build housing, the rents go up. That's supply and demand. Supply goes up, or demand goes up, supply doesn't go up, rents go up. And I hate to feel like I got on the boat and then rolled up the ladder behind me and the boat's sailing away, and everyone else, the water's going up their nose because they can't buy a house because the home prices are going up. They can't rent because the rental prices are going up. And that gets into all kinds of both economics, can't get employees, people can't afford to live here, social justice, you know, people should be allowed to be able to afford houses. And the way we got to do that And let's talk about controlling the birth rate. We got to build more housing. So we need to find places to do that. And
We're not opposed to building more houses.
yeah. And we have to do it in places where there's not already buildings. So, so I just think we need to always be looking at all the alternatives.
That's not altogether true, because what we really need is a vibrant mixed-use development in downtown Groton that would create a real Groton center, a place where people live, work, and play, where we now have huge empty parking spaces and empty storefronts. In our view, that's where we should be spending our energy, focusing. I know there are all these challenges, difficulties with the owners, but really that is where we should be focusing the energy. That's what will make Groton an exciting town when we build.
I agree with that. So,
And to Bill's point earlier, all that takes outside investment. And I think the more outside investors see a good dialogue between the town, the council, what we're doing here, and you as well, that more likely they are to propose, more conforming and interesting investments in our community. So I really appreciate the letter and.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other public comments that I'm?
Good evening. My name is Ian Thomas at 24 Jefferson Drive. And I echo a lot of the sentiments in this letter as far as what Liz Raisbeck put forward. But I'm also just gravely concerned as far as looking at, full disclosure also, I'm on their account. Three. And so I've been reflecting on this whole situation. I was fairly active in helping break down a lot of the information that was in the contracts and all the other proposals that kind of circled around this data center situation. And I am struggling to try to identify where was the breakdown, what could be done better. And I reviewed a lot of the meetings, and in particular the April 7th meeting. I was curious to see the reactions of this group after the vote to terminate from the town council. And I got to say, I was shocked and appalled at some comments by some commissioners, namely Mr. Manthonal here, using the term 75 or so NIMBY ignoramuses. I believe that is incredibly disrespectful and hostile towards the people that felt compelled to come out and speak. I would encourage everyone on this body to maybe attend to the attitude that Mr. Whitehouse or Commissioner Whitehouse brought forward, where trying to find a more inclusive manner of approaching these projects. And now I understand the only reason that the town even got to look at this thing was because of the tax abatement deals and all that. Otherwise, it's private property. If they wanted to proceed with this project on their own, they would have to face zoning and inland wetlands on their own without any sort of public input, and that's fair. And they would have a tough challenge of that thing. I appreciated Commissioner Boris's comments about sort of the closeout and the follow-up with a lot of developers, but I feel like there's a component missing there as far as also doing some public outreach. So when you have these projects and these developments occur, having some feedback from the public as well. What could be done better to better include the town. And along those lines, I would encourage everyone to tune into the town-owned property reuse Commission meetings that have just begun, that Councilor McBride is chair of. And now, you know, obviously there's distinctions between town-owned property and you know, private property and all that, but just the idea of trying to create a more inclusive approach. I don't know how things got to be where they were. I mean, I understand your comments, Chair Groves, about the that you weren't, the EDC was not necessarily, you know, vetting this project, yet, you know, you guys did end up kind of in front of it. You know, at that presentation meeting on the 24th of February, you know, is yourself and Mr. Dunn running the table alongside the developer and Mr. Regan, and then, you know, Mr. Bronk, you were running the microphone. So there was a sense, an impression that there was some sort of endorsement there. Whether or not that was the case or not, the public perceived that, you know. So, you know, if there's going to be some sort of public engagement, it has to be done in a way that I think is not hostile towards public input when there's public input needed. And a lot of the things, like there's a visioning session coming up at Claude Chester, you know, I think that's a step in the right direction. So, you know, I would just encourage, and I've been sitting down a couple of planning and zoning meetings as well, and the chair of that committee has mentioned, like, there used to be a committee of the chairs. And, you know, you mentioned sort of a disconnect between the town council and this committee as well. So I would encourage maybe all the commissions that have some sort of stake in this, you know, planning and zoning, inland wetlands, the town council, you know, to have a more collaborative effort and kind of, like, you know, break down the walls of possible miscommunication that could occur. Just so everyone's on the same page. And I think a lot of the things could be front loaded. I mean, yes, it's a private owned land in this particular case that, you know, they could try to, like, clear cut, do a strip mall, whatever they want. But, you know, they still have to face zoning, planning and zoning, and inland wetlands in the process of doing that. So having some, you know, sort of expectations of that land kind of front loaded into these documents, that, you know, and looking at the oral school situation as well, like, it seemed like the developer was given sort of a wide open canvas to kind of draw whatever they wanted, whereas, you know, the community had sort of a different idea, and there was just like this building impasse that was, you know, kind of fraught with risk and challenges. So I would just encourage all that, you know, better communication. And the other thing I want to just take note of, I mean, I understand this commission was brought together. It serves the town manager primarily, and it was brought together by the town manager, right? That's who appointed this body. Mm-hmm. All right, and likewise with the Conservation Commission. Okay, so in reviewing these meetings, I've noticed that at a number of the meetings, like in January, February, Chair Dunn of the Conservation Commission sat in. You know, he had his own conversations on in his own commission. He had some background in these data centers, and he was highly critical of, or, you know, not even, he actually used the phrase, this is not a serious proposal by any edge. And he used that phrase in his own meetings, and he also used it in the February 3rd meeting of this body. And, you know, 5 days later, you know, they're having that cow meeting at the town council where Mr. Quinn was reintroduced with any edge to the council. And in that process, a few councilors asked, like, you know, for more background and more insight as to, like, you know, what this whole situation was about, you know, what's the changes and all that. And, you know, the town manager didn't represent really much information as far as anything critical to it. And I find that kind of problematic, because I feel like, you know, if this commission and Conservation Commission are there to kind of provide a broader base insight and advice to the town manager, how come the town manager did not relate? There was some concern that this was not a serious proposal, was not a great fit. It was more like a real estate, you know, deal where, you know, I mean, I'm paraphrasing Mr. Dunn's words. You know what I mean? So, you know, and he was saying it just seemed like, you know, Quinn was trying to get rights and be able to sell them off to somebody else. That was his perception of it. And then somehow 5 days later, that didn't get transmitted at all to the town council, wasn't kind of given as part of the background context, nor was that, and then somehow 2 weeks later, we're having the February 24th presentation where suddenly all those critical thoughts, Chair Dunn and yourself are up there, and all those critical thoughts and concerns and lack of appreciation for this being a serious proposal were like just not mentioned. And so I find that just kind of problematic, and I'm just kind of curious, like attitude, approach, and process. What is it that happens, here, and how does that feed the town manager, and how does the town manager feed that information to the town councilors, who ultimately are the ones, making a lot of these decisions. You can't. It's hard to make good decisions with incomplete information. So I would just encourage more communication. And not, it just, I don't know, I'll leave it at that. And, would love to engage in dialogue.
I just want to, and I appreciate all feedback, and that's why we have public communication. And I can address all this because some of the members may not. But in both the cases, and I'm not pointing fingers, I'm just saying how the process worked, is town council made decisions before anything else. Both in the oral school, now, whatever they made the decision, they enter into a contract before it came to us. And the data center was entered into a contract before it came to us. The data center in particular is, I've worked with the Conservation Commission because we all want what everyone else wants, quality of life in Groton, Connecticut. I asked the commission, the chair, to come here to give us input because he has a background in data centers. He was negative about it, and we had conversations because I don't have a knowledge of exactly what a data center does. When he learned more about what they were proposing, because of what is the old data center versus what this was, that's where he started saying, okay, this is something that probably could work because it's a different what he was thought is. We were asked by the town council to do a joint, not a Q&A, but more open it up and have them there to answer questions to the public. That was not, so these gentlemen here were welcome to come, but it was just something outside of the meeting, but it was to open it up to the public. You want my honest opinion? I was basically set up to take the fall with the commissioner because we got good input. And we took a list. In fact, I might even have it with me and with the conservation, and we worked on everything. And it seemed to me the developer was willing to make all the different things that came to us part of the plan. And he still had to go through zoning and all the normal things we had to protect us is the zoning, wetlands, whatever it might be. At that point, it got shut down for whatever reason. We never had, we gave our input from that particular meeting. It wasn't a commission. It was Larry and I put together, this is all the stuff that they seem to, and even conservation at that point, if he goes through and with all these recommendations that came from the people that had sewer concerns, legitimate, noise, the generator types, that went to the town council. This is what the input we got and what they seen. And that's the last we heard of it. So I agree with you. Communication is the key. As a commission, I meet with them next Tuesday to present. We haven't done that in years just because of whether it was COVID or various things. I would like to get direction for what they see the EDC. What is our purpose here? And that'll be that discussion, and we'll go from there. But I appreciate your input. So. Thank you. Commissioners, any other input? I just was, since I was involved in particular, that's why I went, Michael.
Yeah, one thought, I believe I've shared this with you several of Thomas, that one of the things that I've seen kind of in the bigger picture, of course, I'm somewhat to the sidelines of all these things, so I'm so busy, with my other life outside of my unpaid roles in the town government. But what I see is that when the current team on the staff came in, some of the mission was to turn around, like we had all these moldering properties and was get these properties developed, make some things happen. And every solution brings a new problem. So the problem was we didn't have, the properties weren't doing anything. Solution, sell the properties. New problem. Now we're developing all those properties. So the great success of the first thing then led to the next thing, but we haven't had this, spate of development until recently. It's a new thing we're dealing with. And so now we have a new thing that we're learning on the fly. And because the way the town is structured, because we have, a 9-person council, and any kind of planning takes multiple steps of multiple people in multiple meetings. It's like, trying to turn a ocean freighter. So to try to make any adjustments with the systems of communication and policies and whatnot takes forever, decades to get everything in line and moving in the same direction. So I think we're seeing a lot of those things. But again, I think a lot of it comes down to communication, that we need to get the information out. Like the fact that we had a report on all the information on data centers that weren't being planned before we had information on data centers that were being planned, and that got into the public before the accurate information on the actual project got into the public. There's a lot, and I'm not sure what the solution is. Some of it's on the developers, that they need to be, and we've now seen that twice, they need to be sharper on their PR game. They need to be getting out there before they do anything. They need to have a strategy to engage with the community, to get out. Here's what the objectives are. Here's the big picture. We'll have the answers to these questions at this stage, whether it's a date or it's after zoning and zoning rules, but you need to be very clear, because otherwise it feels like obfuscation. And in the bigger picture, because we're surrounded by a broader national culture of, an attacks on objective truth, whichever side of the spectrum you're on, neither side trusts objective truth anymore. Everyone feels like, I'm being lied to. Oh, it's a conspiracy. Oh, it's the whoever. So they really need to be on their game to be over communicating and not doing anything that feels like obfuscation or conspiratorial behavior, because there's just too much of it.
But yeah, I'd just like to add the point. I take your point to heart about communication. Communication is really important. A couple downsides of that is if you don't have good communication, residents, get worried about these projects. They don't know where the information's coming, and we want to have a town where we have a lot of projects that are presented to us. We can turn them down or not. We can give input to the town council, but the more we can depoliticize the environment and create proper channels for information to get out, calmly present the pros and cons through the council, through the town manager, and publicly, I think the more confidence residents will have in the process, and it will create a better environment to attract businesses, and the process will just be less stressful. Because I know, it's hard as a resident to know what next, and that's just the wrong way to look at the relationship between economic development and quality of life. So thank you very much, and I really do appreciate your comments.
I'm just going to end it with this, just because I've been on for 6. George had been on for like a quarter century. I don't remember when you started here. We were scribing our minutes, but when I got on, this group of people so I agree with what Liz started out. The town staff we have, and I'm a banker. I've dealt with this from the whole shoreline of Connecticut. I've dealt with New London when I worked down there with it. We're focused. We as a group, and this is not the current, but George, I believe, was on. We got on a bus. They took us around all the different properties and stuff like that. The job that they had was monumental because we were not on the map. I'd love to say this is a place where everyone wants to come invest their money. People want to come eat in Mystic, but do people want to come invest their money? They have brought together these people coming into the town, which is the biggest first step, is investment. And as a banker, we look at them saying, you have money, we'll put money up too. So we look at it from that same perspective. Once you lose that, it's very tough to get it back again. So my biggest concern as a town, and we represent the town, not the town manager, he can get rid of us, it's easy, is are we setting a stage for these people that says, because I know engineers that have made the comments, it seems to be getting tough to get anything through in Groton. You don't, even if that's wrong, you don't want that to be the thought process. So, but thank you for your input. And as I said, we can do it, work it together and communicate, but we don't want to go backwards from where we were before of actually, we are on the map as Groton. So,
Right. And then to that end, I think, you know, like the public visioning session that's happening at College Chester is a good step in the right direction. You know, and I understand there's a lot to commend, and I wanted to kind of echo Mr. Raisbeck's sentiments in part of this, where she's talking about all the positive stuff, but there's been a lot more successful development in this town than there have been unsuccessful, you know, over the last few years. So, you know, that's, you know, a commendation. It's just like when it goes sideways, it seems to go sideways big.
well,
And-
just to back up on it, and this is not from our thing because they have their own, but in the city of Groton, the same thing. And they have, and I know the developer, and he spent a lot of money. He went in front of the town and they said, okay, if you do these things, we're okay. And he went back and spent more money and came back and said, here, I changed it. And they said, no, we still don't like it. And he walked away. He's like, forget it.
That was the 5 corners.
Yeah, but the point is that they spent a lot of money just to do the PR and to bring in or to clean up properties or stuff like that. And that's where I get concerned, is where people, because we're not the only name in town. I mean, there are other communities that they might be more accommodating, and we don't want to be over accommodating, but we want a good fit, and that's the communication.
And one quick counterpoint to the 5 corners situation, because I was tracking that closely too, is the Colonel Ledyard School situation, where that developer has also spent a lot of money and time and has made some adjustments that were substantial enough to respond to the citizens' concerns. And now that whole community around it is on board with that project, and it looks like it's going to go forward. So,
Well, my understanding with the 5 corners is just that they did make they did accommodate what the changes were, and then they wanted more changes. So,
you know, we don't want to get into weeds.
no, that's what I'm saying, but that's the communication.
There were like,
Yeah,
Just
they
debate-
all talk, is what I'm saying, the
Yeah.
developers, the engineers, and we want to make sure we're still on the right.
but there's a 1 and 1 there, where one kind of failed and one just moved
I hear you.
in constructive fashion. Thank you.
Thank you for your input.
If I can add one point to Lorena's comment. I think you and I had several dialogues on Facebook.
Yeah.
And in there, I had shared repeatedly for most of those people that contributed or posted, please do their homework, research. The data center that was proposed is unlike what exists today in most part of the country and around the world. These are the newer versions called edge technology. These data centers or facilities can be as small as a container box, like those 13-wheelers drive them. We will need this all over the country. It will happen all over the country. There is no stopping it. It's just like going back to telephone poles. If you want to communicate, you'll need those telephone poles. And you would need these little boxes. If it's not put together, it's going to be by itself all around the country. The purpose is to move to 5G. The old data centers does different things. They were different purposes. The current data centers are for the digital realm, for the internet. And for me in particular, I'm extraordinarily conscious about cybersecurity. We host the most sensitive infrastructure in this country. And thereby, the further away a box is from us, the less chance we get to control what may wreck this environment. If it's closer, we can pull whatever kind of a DNS defensive work we can do on a cyber level. If it's further away, it becomes more critically, it becomes handicapped. We would need more resources. And it's not we as the town staff. This is EV, their supply chain companies, Pfizer, their supply chain company. It also includes our nuclear power station. So these are infrastructural issues, grid issues. And to say we can't do it, it's not in my backyard, it's being very, very short-sighted. Please, ma'am.
No, not, we are not opposed to data centers in Mexico. What we were most opposed to in this proposal was that they were going to have 2050, diesel fuel backup generators.
I got it,
They
yep.
were not going to run just during emergency. They wanted to peak shape, which would greatly increase the air pollution. And Connecticut is a non-abatement area in air pollution under EPA. Electric boat Pfizer their own diesel generators. If we increase its emission significantly in this town, EPA is going to up the requirements for our best employers, electric boat and Pfizer, their diesel.
If I could just, this is one example. I think this is another example of where communication totally broke down at the 30,000-foot level. The state dropped these data center agreements on municipalities, and they had to scramble. The town councils had to figure out how to do this stuff. So a lot of local people got very upset and nervous, rightly so. And a lot of commissions and town councils tried to figure out noise issues and things. It's just, it started up on high and we had to deal with it. So
And I
it's
agree with
another,
that.
goes right to what you're saying. We
agree with that
really need to
assessment.
figure out
Yeah.
how that stops, because our community doesn't deserve to do that. It's very divisive, and at the end of the day, it complicates things unnecessarily. We needed guidance from on high. If they were saying these are okay, to be discussed and
It's a catch-22. They will say it's a municipal.
I'm just gonna shut, what,
We got two people on the pad, to attend.
Yeah, I don't want to monopolize.
I went to Tom beforehand also.
Fair enough, I just want to make sure.
No, I always wanted to, and Tom, I'm back out to you again. Do you have any comments on this one?
I'd rather comment another time.
Thank you. Yeah, I make sure I always cognizant of that. The representative liaison doesn't usually comment as the commission. Thank you.
And just to interrupt, sorry to interrupt you. She's very difficult to understand, and I apologize. I just sent an email to Lauren. Maybe there's a transcript. I'm trying desperately to understand what she's saying, but I'm not hearing it correctly.
Understood. That it's just from Zoom. There's not much to do. Okay, we'll do our best to get that to you, Tom. All right, I'm going to shut down just this point only because, and I just want to tell you something that normally when I have public communication, we listen to the public communication and then we go about our meetings for commission to do. This is probably one of the best communications that we've had since I've been here, and that's why I let it go a little, because I was more interested in hearing from the commissioners, not to discount what the community says, but I appreciate the input, because this is what we need as a commission, to have more input, not just here at a meeting, but out there in the community. And this is what we keep on talking about. So being in person helps. Being in person is huge, and as I said, I will entertain this with commission discretion of saying, is this something we want to discuss further? But I thank you both for your communications today, and we will take it on. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the agenda, the approval.
Again, we have one. That's what I was saying, we have public communications on.
Oh, I asked Laura before. Do we have more?
Yeah, they're right in front of us. Two.
Oh.
So I'm telling you, we got a Ms. Furlong and a Ms. Pratt.
Okay, I thought you were talking about something.
Hands up.
Mary Ellen.
I will allow the top. You ready?
Mary Ellen, are you there?
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, I can. Go ahead.
All right, I'm sorry that I've been unable to hear, understand some of this. So I may repeat something that's been said, but I have a couple of points. One, we've heard that data centers use a lot of electricity, water, and in some cases, they make a lot of noise. One factor that has not really been emphasized is that they take up a tremendous amount of space. If you look at the amount of space in Northern Virginia, which is the center data centers, you'll see that there are long lines of these data center buildings. And recently, some data centers have asked for 2,000 more acres to be set aside for data centers. This is really a consumptive use of land. If you'll recall, when we first heard about data centers in Groton, it was said that they were small things, little things. And on the map that was shown on the town website, we saw little things about a dime in size. And we were told that they were small. Well, when you looked at it, it actually turned out to be 380 acres. That's a pretty big size of land to take. And when I noticed that at that meeting where Mr. Quinn answered questions, I tried to bring this up. He cut me off and very sarcastically said, 173 acres, sir. Well, yes and no. When Mr. Quinn was working for GotSpace, you had 207 acres. And then when he switched to New England Edge, it was 173 acres. Together, they come out to 380. That's something I think, we have to ask, why do they want so much space? And if you listen, if you make the obvious deduction, it's because they want to use it. What other use do they have for it? And you could find later that there are just lines and lines of this stuff along the Holstein property. Now, the second thing that's bothered me here is that I hear an either or idea, that either you take Holstein or either you take that data center, or you're going to have a lead factory along I-95, or an enormous shopping center. Has thought been given to using the beauty of this area, which it is beautiful, as I think most of us here would agree? How can we use that to economic advantage? Not necessarily through data centers, which could bring in buckets and buckets of money, but modest increases that will preserve the character of Groton. I mean, I think of wild things like there are kids there right now who are playing disc golf, and they've got a whole little headquarters set up there to play disc golf. We've got rope climbing in one part of the town. We're going to have bicycle pumping in another. Could we combine all these things into some sort of adventure area, which is separate from just the pure conservation spaces that exist otherwise? I just like to, have more imagination put on this and less either or. It's either the data center and the possibility of huge expansion in the future, which is not really being discussed, or it's going to be a big lead factory or an enormous shopping center. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, Catherine Pratt. Catherine, you there? Catherine, can you hear us?
What do they want? Oh.
Catherine?
I see her on the meeting, but I see her, she's muted.
Yeah, that's
Catherine, you need to unmute.
all we can do on this end.
Last chance, Catherine, to unmute. Yeah, she's gonna have to run. Okay. Linda left the room.
As a one brief comment, it will come off as somewhat flippant, but I do find some irony in being against data centers as a whole transmitted over Zoom, which is only possible because of acres of data centers through which that message came. Like data centers are, it's to George's point that.
Hey, I get it. We're not here to
We
debate.
need to tell, but I just had to make that comment.
Yeah, I'm not here to debate data centers, but I'm interested in the feedback. Okay, we're gonna move on to the meeting, the approval of minutes for April 7th, 2022, which is our last meeting. Did everyone have a chance to review them, I hope? And if so, any changes, additions? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve.
Approved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting minutes are approved. Old business, Groton Business Roundtable. We have a couple things on this thing, but for one, we've had two of them so far. I was not able to make the first one. I hear it was a very good communication amongst business owners, and issues came up that we're not aware of, and that's why we're holding this thing. And this is another form of our outreach. I did attend the one on this past week, and it seemed like, oh, this is as well attended. Well, guess what? Short-term rentals came up, and it was a very good conversation because there are things that I learned from it also. So that being said, I think this is a positive. I think this is something that we should encourage to do more of. We originally discussed this, we discussed it, and Bob has been very gracious to offer his office. And if we don't have another thing, hopefully he'll extend it again. But we're talking about having these rotated to other venues also to maybe get to different pockets where we can better serve the community. So Michael was in charge of this, but I'm not going to put it all on you, but I'd like you to put, if we can find some different venues and such like that. But I would like at this point for the next one, as a commission, if everyone's in agreement, to continue, if it's okay, at Bob, since it's already situated, it's a great location, and then also to start looking for some other venues that might want to be hosting it, just to change things up a bit.
And so it worked out great because the concept of it is to take the mastermind idea of the hot seat. Someone comes in with their challenges, and then the room, shares their knowledge and wisdom to come up with solutions, which worked out really well with the short-term rentals question. So we could bring in a lot of different perspectives from around the community there. And so I think the thing to look at is, as we're out in the community talking to business owners, if somebody mentions they have a problem, whatever it is, every business owner has some problem at some point, because if they didn't, they'd be rich and retired and they wouldn't have business anymore. So if you got a business, you got a problem. And so if they have, whether it's labor or COVID or supply chains or morale or whatever, say, come on down. This is the place to get some really valuable free advice for the community. And that's kind of what because I think some people think, when they think forum, they're like, oh, the EDC is going to talk to me about stuff. But instead, say, like, bring your challenge, and your peers who may have already come up with that solution will help you out.
So the second part is tying in that is, I implore each and every one of us, and George, it includes you, just because you talk to people, is, hey, you got a grief? This is where you can bring it to, because someone's going to listen to you and fight about it. But I think it's good to make people aware of this. And if we're not outreaching, I mean, we've tried everything since I've been here. Give a card, take a card, do this, do that. The only time we did something concerted is when we had the COVID kits and we went out and handed them out to people. And even there, I think we got some email addresses, but I don't think we had a lot of meaningful conversations. The same thing as tonight. it's the meaningful conversations what it's all about. This is the only way we get a feel for what's going on here. Michael.
Well, and I think that one thing to focus on too is the purpose of this isn't, the town's not going to solve your problem. Then. It's going to be a putting our heads together session. Because I think if somebody comes and says, oh, I want to talk to the town. I have an issue with this town policy. Well, you're not going to reach the town council through there. You're not going to advocate or lobby. You're going to find, so if it's, how do I work within this new ordinance, or how do I work? Yeah, if we're looking for solutions, that's a place for it. If it's a place to give them peace of your mind, this is not the place to bring that. It's a place to find answers and solutions and solve the problem. So I want to make sure we're not bringing people to be a rape session.
As commissioners, though, for big example, is I learned something with the group that they actually have their own group that they've organized and policing, which is things that we can bring back to the town when they're making decisions on these types of things. So better informed we are, the better we can be for being advocates of certain things. So that's why I want to make sure that we're all on the same page with that, because there again, Robert and I were there, staff was there, Michael Kane did his thing. The more we had there, at first I thought it was just going to be an EDC meeting, and it turned out to be a real good conversation. So don't think that it's not. And Lauren's kids were even there to set up, so it was a beautiful thing. Next, new business. Any comments on that, or Tom? Anything?
Nope, I'm still here.
Can you hear me clearly?
I can hear you clearly, yes. And Michael. Good comments, Michael.
Next old business annual report. I had a family emergency when I was supposed to address them last month. I'm rescheduled for June the 7th, which is Tuesday. I'm going to present the annual report. Rob, I understand you were there to support me. Thank you, but I just had things out of my control, and everything seems to have worked out. Just to give you guys my sense on where I will present the report as we did, but I also am going to be kind of blunt in my perception of EDC and how we fit into the whole town council communications and whatever like that. And I'd like to get a clearer sense from them exactly where do they see us going with this, because there's frustration. And, as I said, George has been on longer, so he's seen both sides of it. I'm kind of 5 or 6, and I saw how it was when I first came on, but I'm getting discouraged myself. I just say that honestly, and I want a little bit more definition to see exactly what our role is here. And we'll go from there. And I would encourage everyone to attend if you have the time to do it, because you can hear it firsthand, and maybe you want to make comments yourself. But I think that's what the venue's for. So the more they hear from us, the better. We've lost members because of this frustration. We've lost people of interest, and I get the sense in some respects that. Rob, you're the newest addition on it. You've come on and, kind of how I came on. And then I can see it just, okay, what am I doing here? And I don't want that to be the case. So I'm going to look for a little bit better definition.
And when are you presenting it?
That is Tuesday the 7th. They probably put me on last since I missed. I'm probably kidding. Probably early. No, as I said, it's everyone has a copy of the annual report that we sent up, which is just kind of the way I do it in an outline form. But I really want to have more of a conversation and get their input, because I don't see us as a political organization. I see us representing 40,000 people in the town of Groton and the businesses that go along with that, and trying to get some direction for us, and hopefully we'll get back on track, or we'll see what goes from there.
If anyone needs a copy of the annual report, let us know. Email Lauren, me, whomever, and we'll get you that copy.
If you guys don't mind, could you put an email out? You said the 7th, and what time? Just as a reminder.
I believe 6:30 is when it starts. I just don't know where. I think I was number 4 on the agenda last month. So hopefully they'll get me on earlier than later.
Anything else, Tom?
No, just as a reminder, that's fine. And I agree with you in everything you just said.
Okay, very good. New business. Do we have any new business? Yes.
I'd just like to mention
Oh, go
an
ahead.
issue that's happening at Brantford Manor, and I'm not sure what this would be helpful to know what role we can play. I'll just brief you on what I found out. The residents are having mold issues and some issues related to the manager being very harassing of them and having them move out of their basement space. There are a couple town councilors that are involved, and there's also the city manager, there's the city mayor, deputy mayor is involved, and it's a HUD property. So there's a lot of communication breakdown, but I want to bring it up because, you know, people are suffering. It's a community issue, a quality of life issue, and I don't know what role we can play or what communication we can play to make sure that things don't get dropped. But it's frustrating. It's been going on for a year or two now publicly, the mold issue and some of the other issues that the tenants are trying to organize and get some help from the different layers. There's also some sort of a tax deal that the town and the city agreed to give. So I don't know if that gives us some ability to provide input that's helpful to people that are trying to help the residents there.
So a tax abatement to address the mold?
No, a couple of years back.
Oh, okay, so this was.
Yeah.
They
They were supposed to have done improvements but my point is there's a lot of attention to it in the town and the city. That's great. Now I've been involved and seen the residents and what they're going through. So I wanted to bring it up as well, make sure that if there's anything we can contribute, our communications, we all have, everybody's aware and it's getting addressed as quickly as possible.
I don't know where we would actually, as the EDC, be involved, but I always like to know what's going on. So any updates you can give us in the future about things change or such like that, I think is the best course, because I don't really think it's in our.
Is Ledge Light officially involved?
Yeah, there's communications. The mayor is communicating with Ledge Light and regarding complaints. The specifics of where those things are at, probably discussing with the city mayors. You know, I don't have the latest, but yes, they are now getting it addressed. I just wanted to bring it up because it wasn't being addressed, 20 days ago or so. But everyone's rallying around it now. But it's frustrating.
Well, it possibly could be a housing issue if Ledge Light and HUD gets involved and they shut down. If you're trying to find alternative.
It could be. My understanding is there has to be a health determination as to whether or not it truly is the mold that's affecting people. That's not typically something that your average municipal inspector is able to make a determination on. So it's
there's discussions of whether there's retaliation against tenants for reporting this. It's I'm very upsetting. The longer you listen to the tenants discuss it.
HUD-funded project that was a part of the assessment. In order for them to get the federal financing, they needed to secure basically a 50-year financing agreement, and that's what involved the city and the town. So it does involve local, I believe, state and federal at all levels.
And the health side, and only because I have a lot of experience with mold. When I was the chair of schools in Old Lyme, we went through it. So what they do is Ledge Light comes in, they get their experts saying exactly what type of mold is it. Right. Because the Stachybotrys is the most concerning, which has been lethal in some cases and like that. But once they make a determination of exactly what it's a process, right? And then how to remedy an open window. I mean, it can become a long-term process, but as I said, keep us informed, and if we need to get involved somehow, I'd be happy to do it. But I think if we got the health departments and stuff like that, that's really the course that has to be done first. So, thank you. Any other new business? Okay, chair report. We're moving right along now. This is one that's me. Laura's like, oh my God, the meeting's not going to end. Couple things. We were requested from the previous meeting that I brought to the commission by the town manager. I think it came vis-a-vis one of the commissioners.
Commissioner Franco.
Oh, yeah, okay. Rachel Franco referred over and wondered about us getting involved with the businesses that are vacant and stuff like that. And at that time, we didn't have a lot of description and such. So I asked to get some clarification and stuff. Paige did put together a clarification of all the things that people brought up and did send it over to the town manager. So I'm looking to get the feedback on exactly what they're looking for us to be doing there. Because as brought up in our discussion on it is, we've got some of those strip malls that are 90% occupied, but maybe one of their stores isn't occupied. And some of them maybe has a large vacancy, but the other places are full. So I don't really know where we're going with it, but if they can give me better definition, I will bring it back to you when we get a response, and we'll see what we can do with it at that point. So, and another thing that we requested, and I think this came from John Reiner, right? The parking? Yes. Okay. So Mystic Parking, everyone knows that we've had studies done. They did very comprehensive of stuff like that. So they're on the second phase, and they're trying to put together a group of people that are where the vested. So EDC, they would look to have one of our commissioners as a participant of it. I believe it was a Mystic resident, Mystic business owner. They're just trying to put all the different stakeholders on this group to address it. And so I was asked to get a commissioner that would be involved in these meetings and such like that. I've always put my hand up saying, okay, I'll do that. I'm not doing it this time. So guess what I was going to say? But if Robert is,
I would say the focus at this point is implementation.
Yep.
Plan is done.
Yeah. So
There are key objectives and strategies. So this next leg deals with where are we going to focus our steps.
right. So there is a comprehensive plan that Lauren, I don't know if you have it. If not, you can get a copy over to him just to bring yourself up, because I know the Mystic Arts has a large portion of it and some of the things. So they've done a lot of the heavy lifting already. But this, as Paige said, it's more implementation and how to lay it out. So, Robert will be our liaison to that committee, and then we will have that on our, when the first meeting is, Paige?
I do not.
Okay.
No.
Well, if there's a meeting between now and then, I'll just ask you to report on whatever we need to be doing and where you are with that. But I thank you for volunteering for that. And that's all I have for the chair report. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Paige.
Thank you. So you all have a copy of the report. Obviously, we've been focused on ARPA for a while, and we finally did get the applications out the door. We got the green light from the council to move forward on that. They're due June 30th. And what I am asking is that anyone you speak with, let them know that this is on the street. We've done our best to get the word out there, social media, website, postings, whatever we can do, but we have a few $1 million that we're looking to get on the street for certain categories. Social services, business assistance. So we have those who've been in touch with us, but we would like to know more. Make sure that they're aware this is out there. We have an ARPA coordinator, Kevin Fitzgerald, or anyone on the staff. We're willing to try to have a conversation with them and let them know how we can help them. It is a competitive process. Obviously, we'll probably have more applications than we have funding, but nonetheless, it's really important. We've worked a long time to get to this point. Please tell everyone you know on the street. If they have any questions, let us know. June 30th is the deadline. Greater Groton, the public engagement tool, the two latest initiatives we put on there, short-term rentals and also Claude Chester. That was mentioned, and I think there's already been a mention, but we have this brochure that everyone has a copy. Please let people know about the Monday night event where we're hoping to gain more insight from the public. And it's not just what do you want to do for Parks and Rec, it's what do you want to do with the building? Do we want to keep the building, get rid of the building? Do you want to use part of the building or business incubator or things like that, daycare? So it's important to have a broad-based perspective and inviting people to the meetings so we can get a lot of different ideas.
Has that been turned over? The board of it turned that over to the?
I believe we have the keys.
And so we're able to.
Yeah, but it'll still take forever.
No, I understand that. I always get frustrated that they have to
Right.
turn it over to us.
I believe we now have.
Okay.
Yeah. Explore More Groton, town staff, particularly Sam, really, and Lauren's involvement in doing some great work. This is the first time that we've done the refresh since it's launched. I will not go into details. Sam's here if you have any questions. A lot of information on that. It's a lot of graphics, video, photography. It really represents Groton well. As a refresher for those who don't know, the Explore More Groton website is not to be confused with our town website. It's being used to promote and market Groton, not to deal with traditional town business, but to attract investment in residents and workers. Community Challenge Grant. We're looking at a fall submittal to the state. We are targeting downtown. We're trying to work with partners and property owners and businesses to create kind of a public-private partnership. And we actually are having some good traction on that. So we're pretty excited. Stay tuned. We'll come back to you with more information. Already covered Business Roundtable. Already talked about the Cloudchester event on Monday night. CDBG, although not exactly economic development, pretty excited. We did submit to the state a $2 million CDBG application, a proposal. It's not just 2 million though. Another state agency, CHAFA, the Connecticut Housing Finance Agency, is involved. So both Connecticut Housing and CHAFA have taken interest in our Grassville Gardens project. So when we submit this application for $2 million, what that does is trigger another level of review from CHAFA for additional multi-million to really make this happen. And we think we have pretty good odds at getting multi-million for that property. Wayfinding signs, I think Michael mentioned also, Robert, that finally we have our first sign in outside of town property, that is. You'll notice it's at the intersection of Route 117 and Route 1. More to come. We'll do landscaping at that location, but it's kind of exciting for those who haven't seen it. Please take a look. Mystic Education Center. There was an update on May 24th to the council on that, partially in the public session, partially in executive session. I will say, you know, this type of Cloudchester event, we actually did that in 2017 for Mystic Ed. And I think for the first time with Mystic Ed, that was the first project we actually built a web page with environmental data, feasibility analysis, all of that, and public input, et cetera. So can we do more? Sure. Can we communicate more? Definitely yes. But there was a pretty strong effort in doing that, but we'll continue to improve. The Gold Star Highway property, there was a presentation by AR Builders in May 10th, I believe. There'll be 324 multifamily units on that particular property. The last one, excuse me. I think they're looking to break ground this year. Usually those projects will take a year, year and a half to construct. And then Colonel Ledyard School, also there was a presentation to the council, basically comparing the initial concept plan to the revised final plan. Council was satisfied. Next steps, they have to go back to the city and get their approval, but I think he's eager to move forward as well. And we dealt with a short-term fixed assessment on that property just during construction. I think that's pretty much it.
Questions for Paige? And as far as the Explore Groton, I'll tell you what, that is just one of the best marketing pieces that Sam and Lauren both worked very hard at. So there's another one of those schools I would delete. To have conversations, people just refer to it. It's all there. You don't have to do a lot of talking. And they really, it's a really nice page. I get my alerts, so that's what I know about every day. Groton Utilities, Aaron was not able to be here today, but there's his sheet that I've asked him to put together, and you can see that we have actually gone down a little bit in our commercial customers with them. So there's signs I never like to see, but hopefully there's just more of a blip than anything else. The other thing that Paige always points out, he did this time, but we are unemployment-wise, we are still below the state in those numbers. So we also put that up. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to, we're going to do our liaisons. And first time we get to meet them face to face, Stephen here is from the United States Naval Base.
Thank you, and thanks for having us over to give you a little update on what's going on in the base. Last weekend on Saturday, we had the Uss Oregon Commissioning, which is it's the second Block 4 Virginia class submarine that the Navy's brought online. It's the 20th Virginia class submarine in total. And we just want to say, welcome to Groton. We're very happy to have that as our newest boat online there in Groton. The captain gave a little report today at our ops meeting and mentioned that he went to the Memorial Day celebration down here at the World War II Memorial. It was very memorable for him because a Lawrence Edge Jr. came, who was the son of Commander Lawrence Lott Edge, who was the commander of USS Bonefish, which is one of the boats we lost. It was actually very neat to have him there, and a lot of pictures with the flag from the boat and other things. It was very very meaningful, and we got to really get moved by that. It's kind of a nice thing to happen right here. He's actually not even, he's from like I think he's from Arizona or Atlanta or someplace, and he's just up here on vacation. Just happened to stop by, so it's kind of neat. Another event that we had a couple weeks back, we celebrated the induction of Deputy or Assistant Chief Kenneth Jeffrey into the Navy Firefighting Emergency Service Hall of Fame. He was a firefighter on base and also with Town of Windsor Locks for some 32 years. He died in the line of duty some time back. He was actually the chief of the Windsor Locks Fire Department. So having him inducted into that Hall of Fame is a big deal, and there's a lot of people that came. I didn't make it to the event, but there was a lot of people that came, and his family was there and stuff. It was a very moving event, and quite justified. I guess he was a very, very active member of the fire department, and in the community and whatnot. So that was good. What else? We're still going forward with the IGSAs. We have the one with the Capital Region Council of Governments. We're getting ready to actually probably use them for the first time to do a project to eliminate some lead paint from our tunnels, which is going to be exciting. We are just about ready to put the IGSA together for the Groton Utilities. We've got to that point. That's almost done. So that's exciting. They're going to be doing a lot of work for us. Water testing and housing, hydrant flushing and inspections, backflow preventions, emergency repair, and a few other things I'm probably forgetting. So it's going to really help us a lot with things that we don't have time to do on base for our internal staff. So we're really happy that they're working with us as well. And then we're also going to be doing one with the DOT to do some work out front in drainage. So that's exciting as well. Another project that would cost the base a ton of money to do ourselves, since they have their existing permits with the DEP, and it's their land, or half their land. It's very easy for them to do it, so it's going to save us a lot of money. So we're really excited about that as well. That's just getting approved by the state, and that should be done here hopefully pretty soon as well. So I actually just met today with the Animal Control Director up at NECA, the Northeast Connecticut Council of Governments. They have their own animal control facility up there. Maybe help us take care of some cats that we have in place. They're not strays. They're what's the word? Feral cats that we have. Mainly the kittens that they have kittens with. Get them adopted out so we don't get too many of them on base. But that's exciting. So doing a lot with the IGSA is really great. Keeps money local and helps support the local towns and local groups that we're working with, so that's exciting. Oh, I have, anybody has any questions?
Thank you, Steve. Questions, anyone?
No, it sounds like a great name for a sub though, Farrell.
Is this now?
Yeah.
Do you have any community events coming up next 3 months?
Any big events? Well, oh yeah, I forgot to mention the Nautilus is still in the dry dock, but it's you just saw a picture of it. I bring it up on the phone. It's the outside of it's all been all painted and it's beautiful. It's like new. And then I guess they're gonna take it out of the dry dock here in the next couple of days. And then they're probably gonna do some work, you know, on the pier side, doing some other interior work and whatnot. But that's moving along nicely. This fall, that will be coming back over to the museum. That's going to be a very large event. Welcoming home party for her. So that'll be a big event. What else? Off the top of my head, I don't know of any other big events. We have a lot of little things that happen throughout the year, but I can't remember anything else that's really big coming up in the next few weeks.
I was thinking more since the base is going and our community is going to have more interchange in public events where we know what's happening in the west side and we can participate in those community programs and whatnot.
Oh, yeah.
And vice versa. For your crew to be engaged with our community food service or whatever it is, all those kind of things that could be meaningful to have base. That we know the base is there, base folks knows that we are here. More of a neighborly.
We actually have a lot, our sailors do a lot of volunteer work in the town with different nonprofit groups and events and things. That's especially in the summertime, there's a lot of those kinds of events. I know the captain's going to paper in front of me. One of the schools, the Board of Ed's having a little event, and they're going to go into that here in the next few weeks. There's a lot of little events like that that happen on a fairly regular basis. I just don't have them all right in front of me, but yeah, there's a lot of information in the town and the base.
I think when you're pointing to, you says you have a couple of events coming before.
No, that's the city Groton, but you guys there is information flow about things that are going on and about for the Navy and vice versa. So just read. All I was kind of pointing out to you.
I know reading, but I know where to read it from.
That was in the package.
Posted on our website.
That was on our package. Thank you very much, David. And nice to see you. Yeah. And Mr. McBride on the other side of the fence for the town council rep. Anything to add?
Yeah, not much to add. I just want to say this has been a great meeting, very extensive communication and agree. More is needed at the town council level as well. More transparency and collaboration as we discussed, you all discussed earlier. So just want to commend everybody's efforts on this meeting. It was really good. Also want to say that I have held 2 property reuse committee meetings, and they will be held the first and the third Wednesday of every month. So I would encourage anyone to attend those. We're trying to accomplish, pretty much do what you all mentioned tonight was more communication, community involvement, more transparency, more collaboration, and so forth. So first and third Wednesday, we'd love to have everybody there. We're trying to really just, develop a comprehensive plan to assist with how we deal with the various town properties. So I agree. Someone mentioned this evening about the collaborative effort between the council, the EDC, and the various committees. And I think that's definitely in the right direction. I think that's what we need. So just appreciate everyone's efforts and look forward to any input you have on the committee that we have, the property reuse, and we'll go from there. But thanks for all your efforts, and we'll move this forward.
Thanks, David.
Thanks.
Anything for David from the commission? Any other business before the commission tonight? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. A second.
All right, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sure.